Hello everyone, here psst.one. Last Saturday I was in Funkhaus here in Berlin for the Mirror Festival, and I had the opportunity to interview some artists there. The first one is Wiehl. He performed the visual part of the Forest Words show, and also he collaborates with artists like Hookworms and Vessels and Immix Ensemble, alongside many others. He is also the audio-video director of Liverpool International Festival Psychedelia. But you will see all this stuff, so enjoy! How do you start with visuals or the video in general?
Yeah, so originally I studied graphic design, and we set up a studio at that point. We were putting shows on it as well. We just started to look at the production at these shows, and at the same time I joined a electronic music collective called Hive. So I really got a chance then to work with some really amazing artists with the events, and from that, you know, got to work with like Matthew Herbert, Chris Watson, like Plaid. It was really amazing. It was like, you know, such a great in at the deep end experience to work with these artists doing visuals for them at the shows, that I just started to build that up. And it's only actually recently, in the last, say, 3 or 4 years, I've been kind of like only focusing on this. I make more music videos than I used to, because I came from a print background, so I kind of self-taught, and I was learning just the best way to kind of do these things.
That you combine this real world with 3D, but you split exactly, you don't combine real world. Why you did this choice, and what fascinates you in this process?
It's been nice approaching each band project or artist project kind of individually. Like I felt like I haven't got like a set style of working, so I find the collaboration at the beginning of the project really interesting. Kind of what comes from that isn't really driven by a way of making the media. But what I did find, I was really interested that the combination of both, that there were two separate worlds, and it wasn't even the digital world necessarily needed to mimic the actual world and the 3D work look very real. It's like I kind of like the relationship between both those things, that one thing is film, one thing is digital. There's like different processes, and I think you have a different relationship with the work. If you're looking at film, it has a very different feel, whereas a digital model kind of creates a kind of a super reality or a hyper reality around that feel. But I kind of like them sitting next to each other, just that there seems to be, you know, certainly with the artists I'm working with, for say Forest Swords, where the work is kind of like organic, but also there's a digital edge. It was nice to have both those worlds sitting together in a way, without trying to merge them too much, but have them sat side by side.
But why you don't want to merge it?
I think you have a different relationship with the imagery working separately, rather than there being film work with digital models in them. One is a digital realm, one is a organic realm, and then I think that kind of like maybe offsets you a little bit in the way you treat the work. You're less able to perhaps pigeonhole the artist and decide, oh, they're working in the electronic world, or they're working in, you know, more of a guitar band way. That it helps kind of break those boundaries down. And I think a lot of the music that I've been working with hasn't been straightforward, and you know, the Hookworms work, they've got more digital input in there. There's more synth work, you know, there's more guitar kind of bass tracks in certain things, and I think that relationship felt right to me, that I kind of, it almost perhaps feels a little bit odd, and maybe it feels a little bit offset against each other. I mean, that was certainly something with Forest Swords, that there was always a very film-like kind of quality to his music. It always lends itself to soundscapes, and that was something we'd always talked about. And I think there was even a kind of a discussion had that at first there was a little bit of an uncomfortableness in using digital modeling in those clips. It felt like that was kind of not true to where we're at, but actually as we kind of worked on the work together, we found that they do sit next to each other in a nice way. I do find that the way that the modeling and the organic kind of, I guess, the filmmaking do feel a little bit separate. I think that is definitely something that I'm aware of. Certainly with like Vessel and Immix record, where half the work is just filmed and half of the work is digital model, and I kind of like that transition from one to the other. That very suddenly, you know, it's like, well, we're not looking at real life or humans anymore. We're looking at a digital environment or a digital landscape. The thing I'm really enjoying at the moment is kind of where there's like an approach to the whole the visual aesthetic of an artist or a band. So we're often working with, there'll be like a music video is produced, and at that point that's almost like starting the visual look to the project, and then articulating that live and performing live. And I really love that element of this. Is actually, you know, things don't ever really happen twice the same way. There's always a little bit of a revelation in one show and then trying to remember how you did it in the second show sometimes. And I kind of like that organicness, that sometimes it almost works or then it falls apart a little bit and then it locks back in again. And I think perhaps people realise then it is live, and on a couple of projects it's meant kind of like going on stage and being live with them so people can see there is a process happening. But yeah, I find those kind of moments where there's a video, then leading into producing an AV show, which then obviously the work tends to, at that point, grow quite a lot, quite quickly, because you've almost got this kind of aesthetic to work in. Yeah, I find that there's certainly a really enjoyable element of that part of the project.
Here in Mira you will present your audio-video performance with Forest Ward for his last album, I guess. And can you talk me more about this performance? What is your main aesthetic there? If there is an idea behind this performance, and which is?
I think I've been working with Matthew for 4 or 5 years, and I think Compassion particularly felt like it was a very human record. It was about human beings. It was, you know, there's still landscape in there and there's still a feel, but there was an interesting in documenting the human form more in this. And I think something we were really aware of. We wanted to kind of split it between male and female, and it not rely on, you know, we're having just a female performer in there. There's a male performer, and the relationship between the body and movement. And I guess some of the things that are kind of inherent in Matthew's music. There's this kind of agelessness. There's a lot of semiotics in his music, I think, that create this kind of timelessness about this. But in a way that performing it live, I have like multiple clips, and they're moved, you know, in time with the music, or allowed to kind of like, you know, bleed into the music in a way. And yeah, I kind of, there's an idea that I think as I tend to work, I almost storyboard a set out. So we kind of start to realise where there's a gap needs filling, or where there's perhaps a cluster of similar imagery and that needs breaking up. And I find that actually, like, I do that pretty much with all the projects I now do, is that the set is kind of split up into almost like, you know, mini music videos or mini kind of scenes. So there's not a linear narrative as such, but there is a kind of feel that sometimes there's an arc in the set, or there's a progression. You know, when perhaps something has been, you know, been seen earlier in the set, you know, perhaps to echo that at the back end of the set sometimes has made like some visual sense to me and made visual sense for the audience. I've been working with a dancer for a long time, and I've been quite interested in costume, and I think, you know, certainly explore, you know, I'm from the north of England, and we were talking a lot about kind of like folklore and kind of, you know, this kind of, there's like an interesting undercurrent in Matthew's work of these kind of slightly, I don't know, I guess kind of like old customs, and, you know, some kind of perhaps ceremonial element to it. So I think there's an idea that the movements were certainly really graceful, and that's working with the dancer I work with has been really good. She's very good at kind of understanding exactly what the project needs, and whether there is kind of like, it's meant to be kind of somber or odd, and she's very good at kind of almost like making slightly awkward movements, which again seem to work really well with kind of like Forest Swords, for example, where there's the time signatures are kind of interesting. And so I feel that yeah, the undercurrent of gesture or of creating a kind of atmosphere that this is somehow you're watching not a performance, but some kind of a series of perhaps not ceremonial elements, but something that might alert to there's meaning behind some of these elements.
Another part of your work is that you are the audio-video director of the Liverpool International Festival of Psychedelia. What is your work in that team? How you reach them?
So there's 4 of us all together who run the festival at the kind of as the directors, and in that way we've all been friends anyway for a long time, and something was kind of it grew very organically at the festival, and it's been really great and really fun. I think what we kind of did was really focus on, as best we could, the production for the festival and try and create a new experience in that particular music field as well, that we wanted to try and do something new and make it feel contemporary, and also create immersiveness for the audience, and especially that audience is so receptive to that. A lot of the performances are, there's a lot about kind of losing yourself in the moment, and I think that it organically grew really. So my role at the festival is I kind of put together the design, the kind of like the spaces. We also bring in other AV artists to work alongside myself in the different spaces. But as a whole, the festival, we were trying to create theatre, I think, and each festival had its own identity, had its own aesthetic, and we kind of create this kind of storyline. And I think for us it meant refreshing the experience for people who go into the festival, and also meant that it was refreshing for us as well, that there'd be different kind of themes, I guess. And in terms of I guess that was another really good thing for me. I've learned a lot over the last few years in terms of working on slightly bigger shows as well, and understanding how, when you play in a big room, how does the same experience, how the immersiveness happened for someone at the back of the room as it is if you're at the front of the room. And I think that was something we were really interested in, and something I've been doing a lot with my installational work in kind of club situations has been, rather than there being a central focus, everyone's staying at the screen, say at the front of the stage, we were just trying to play around with that. So we've had like a 360 kind of like wall that we were using. I think there was an idea then that people are not all facing the same way. Maybe they'd face each other a little bit, and there's perhaps an interaction between the audience members as well, and just try and change the orientation of rooms, I think,